Who just joined? Can you hear me? You guys hear me? Can you guys pull up your chat and just let me know? Yeah, it is. Can you hear me talking? Can you both see me and hear me? I just want to make sure. I had to cancel the other one because it was trying to get me to download all of this weird software, and my computer wouldn't let me because I have to get administrator permission. Awesome. Give me a few minutes before we get started. I I need to eat something, but I will. Yeah, we're live, so I'm just glad everybody is able to get on. I'll be right back. Yes, Miranda, I changed. I gotta look nice for y'all. Brand new couch. Living the dream. I don't know who you are, Papa Smurf, but same wavelength. It is. Yes, casual clothing tomorrow. Wow, you guys are really. Yeah, I know. I'm not wild about the throw pillows. It was my roommate's idea. Yellow ones are nice, though. Man, Kirk, you came out swinging on the live chat. Who's he? Who are you, Papa Smurf? Mm. Yes, I will do the. I'll recap the Chinese dynasties. I'm not going to do that just yet because I feel like a lot of people are going to want something like that. So I don't want to. I don't want to do too much before everybody gets on, so I don't have to repeat myself 100 times. And Miranda, I swear to God, if you Snapchat this whole thing, come on, dude. Ugh. I'm going to help you out. Just give me a bit. Oh, guaranteed. It's perfect because David, well, yeah, David will find out tomorrow. Oh, okay. Easy, Eleanor. It's 6:30. But yes, we'll talk about some generalizations that you can make because you're right. It's a lot of information, but if you can just remember one example for each generalization, that could very much help you out. Hold on. This thing goes from 7 to 10. I just got on early to make sure it worked. Yes, I'm just eating now. I was actually working on a surprise for y'all for tomorrow, so sorry. No, just the mic on my computer. What's ASMR? Somehow I bet I shouldn't do that on my work computer. Autonomous sensory meridian response. That sounds like a made up idea. You know, somebody put 4 really big words together. Read the first two questions following. Pranav, do you mean for short answer, or do you mean the multiple choice questions that are stimulus based? Multiple choice. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. Eleanor basically, because I think somebody asked this at one of the review sessions. If you have yeah, no, it's a great question. Generally, you're going to need to read the passage in order to answer. If there's 4 multiple choice questions, you're probably going to need to use the passage itself to answer the first 1 or 2. But as you, if there's 4 multiple choice questions attached to a stimulus, usually the last 1 or 2 is, if the passage is something, maybe a decree from a Japanese emperor in the 1870s, by the end of it, the multiple choice questions are just probably going to be something general about Japanese industrialization, or Commodore Perry opening up Japan, or growing Japanese imperialism, something that you can probably answer without reading the passage. So for that, I'd say read the multiple choice question first, and then gauge whether or not you can answer the question without reading the passage. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to read the passage. You don't have to do like OPVL on it. You don't have to sit there and read it 3 or 4 times. Don't worry, everything's okay. I mean, I made a whole pizza. I'm a grown boy. I hate you, Christy. It's a frozen pizza. Don't be too impressed. Hey, nicer than Red Baron. I have class. California Pizza Kitchen. The test will be over. Hail Bandstra, you get the win for the best username. Test will be over 3 hours. Well, you're going to get a break in between section 1 and 2, probably a 10-minute break. So I'd say tell your parents 11:30-ish, somewhere between 11:30 and 12. Fermentation? What are you talking about? This is pop. What is it? I'm really nervous to even say that word, Genesis. I now have to look it up. If I get in trouble for typing this word into Google, God. You're disgusting. You're a sick individual. I just did. I could make a lot of money doing that because I can eat a lot. Who in the world made their who made their username Ben Hunt? Picture. Oh my God. Oh, hi JD, I love you too. I have no clue what your test is going to look like. I mean, I have no idea what your test is. I don't see it. I'm going to kick you off, Sarah. Genesis, have you taken a practice exam? 4 short answer questions in 50 minutes, followed by a DBQ and a choice between 2 long essay questions. And it's the mandate of heaven is kind of the Shang, kind of the Zhou. Wait, no, don't dislike it. That's mean. I can put you guys in timeout. That's awesome. Are you guys kidding? There's 7 dislikes. That was not cool at all. That was really mean-spirited. No, it will be. You will do the short answer. Actually, and from what I can tell, the oh my God, Quan, you have nothing better to do. Oh my God. No, you're the DBQ and LAQ are together. That's in the same time chunk. Would a continuity be the mandate of heaven for what? Oh God, Clear News Bomber, look out. Kirk, didn't you type in, is the mandate of heaven a continuity? A continuity for what? Ben Hunt, Joseph cattle killing movement, good example of natives trying to find a way to resist imperialist occupation, especially using traditional methods. Sarah used the song Shang Zhou Qinhan, Sui Tang Sang, Yanming Qing Republic, Mao Zedong. Okay, my God. Slow down with your chats. What were the thoughts on foreign people in the Roman society? Well, they're necessary. They're all over the empire, but preference is always given to people who can speak Latin. And obviously, Roman citizenship is increasingly extended to more and more people to assimilate. So that's something that is used to try and bring people in. But the Roman Empire is an incredibly multicultural, diverse empire. Thanks, Nikhil. Once again, I always have students who obviously feel much more comfortable chatting online than actually speaking to me in person. Quan and Nikhil, 2 great examples. I know, Kirk, I'm asking a continuity for, what is the question? Is it a continuity of Chinese history? Then yes, absolutely. Yes, Papa Smurf, I can definitely get a 5. Holy shnikes. Look away for 1 second. Okay. Requirements for becoming a Roman citizen. Well, it starts out, you have to be a free Italian male, and then it gets extended to most and usually owning property. And the requirements are steadily decreased, and especially by the end of the Pax Romana, it's given to basically all free males within the empire. It's used as an assimilation tool. Yeah, barbarians. I mean, barbarians are lower class citizens, obviously, because they are not civilized. They're not speaking Greek or Latin. No, I would probably get a 1 on the AP Chem test. Dates. I mean, there are certain dates that you need to know. A lot of times they're never going to ask you something like, in what year did the western half of the Roman Empire fall? No, but think about on the short answer or essay questions, and they say, hey, talk about causes of imperial decline between 600 BCE and 600 CE, and you talk about an empire that declined in 1000, you're not going to get points for that. So, you know, that's why you kind of need to know dates. Totalitarian and authoritarian alea are pretty interchangeable. Why was Australia important in imperialism? I mean, it's an example of the British Empire creating a colony. And then once you see it establishes a pretty white colony, if you were around yesterday, we talked about the White Australia policy, which is basically designed to exclude Chinese immigrants. And it also includes this idea of the Aborigines being basically the property of the state. Christianity spread into Japan. Remember the Jesuits? Well, I mean, it starts as the Portuguese begin trading in Japan in the early 1500s. You're going to see the Jesuits come over. They're spreading Christianity, and then because they're so, the Japanese are so fearful of increasing Western Christian influences, there's a revolt against the shogun that's led by some Japanese Christians, and that's going to lead to Japan banning Christianity. And yeah, what did Vladimir Lenin do? Are you guys looking up some of these questions before? He's the leader of the Bolshevik Party, and he leads the October Revolution, overthrowing the provisional government in Russia and basically leading to the creation of the Soviet Union as a communist state. What countries did Alexander the Great take over and Hellenize? Basically everything: Greece, Egypt, the Middle East, Persia. But then you're going to see Hellenization spread even into parts of Central Asia and India. For Indian independence after World War II, were the GBs just like, hey, you can have your independence now? It was a process that started in the 1920s. But yeah, it is. It's really it's mostly done through civil disobedience, through protests. It's generally economic and social and political. It's not very violent. Why is the siege of Baghdad known as a turning point? Because you basically see the end of the peak of the power of the Islamic caliphates. That's the end of the Abbasid Caliphate. That's the destruction of the House of Wisdom. You also see the Mongol Empire at its height. Oh my God, top 5 canals. Panama, Suez, Panama, Grand Canal, Erie Canal. I don't know. Something about the Mongols, and in effect, couldn't I technically say that it disrupted trade at first? Yeah, but in the long run, you want to say that the Mongols created the Pax Mongolica, that in reality, the Mongol Empire is what's going to allow somebody like Marco Polo to travel all the way from Italy to China conceivably pretty easily. And why they used to say that you could walk with a golden plate on your head and not have to worry about getting attacked. Most important theme, I don't know, change. Yes, Japan restricted trade just to Nagasaki. Why was urbanization much more prominent in Europe and Asia than in the Americas? Well, think about it. The Americas are incredibly depopulated initially as a result of the Columbian Exchange and the diseases that come over, and there just aren't enough Europeans moving over. And also remember, the purpose of colonization in the Americas is to get resources. So you're not going to have people clustered in those cities at first. You really need to have them spread out, running plantations in order to get access to, sugar and tobacco. The Grand Canal connects the 2 major rivers in China, so the Yellow and the Yangtze. World War II, the comfort women wasn't really comfort. All right, Madison, the comfort women, they're forced prostitutes. When the Japanese army takes over, they will force local women to serve as prostitutes for Japanese soldiers. Delhi Sultanate is just an example of the earliest example, really, of a Muslim kingdom established in India. I think that's a thank you, Genesis. I don't know how people. I guess if you like John Green, then I appreciate that. So thank you. I'll take it. Oh, thanks, Kirk. Alea for Gorbachev. Perestroika, which literally means restructuring, it's going to start allowing more international businesses to come over to Russia. There's going to be general glasnost openness and perestroika restructuring. We see a decrease in the restrictions that the Soviet Union had for people living in the Soviet Union to be exposed to outside ideas. And so that, I mean, you're actually going to see the standard of living increase in the Soviet Union. You're going to see McDonald's come over, kind of like the quintessential American business, really. Who were the first empties? Mesopotamia? Huh? Top 5 Enlightenment thinkers. John Locke, easily number 1. Probably throw in Adam Smith for capitalism. Talk about Rousseau, Voltaire, and Montesquieu. That'd be my guess. Empires. For the first empires in Mesopotamia. You look at, I mean, they may allude to them, but talking about the Assyrians, the Hittites, the Babylonians, you'll see all those names pop up. The Egyptian Empire spread a little bit into the Middle East, but not too much. humanism in Europe, and was this prominent in Asia? No, humanism is really just a European phenomenon. Remember, the humanism is happening as you see the beginning of the spread of the reemergence of Greek and Roman thinking. You see that focus on education, the belief that we as human beings are capable of greatness, that by living a virtuous life, you are capable of achieving that greatness. And so humanism is what encourages people to even bother investing time in learning Greek, so that they can re-expose themselves to all of the thinkers from the classical time period. Can monocultures be used for non-agricultural economies? Like if a country's economy, yeah, I don't see why you couldn't call that a monoculture. Yeah. Similarities and differences in the spread of Christianity, Buddhism, and Islam. They all are offering supposedly egalitarianism. They are generally spread by missionaries. All of them are building off of previous religious ideas. I'd say those are the big similarities. Who are the biggest empires in Mesopotamia? I mean, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Hittites, and eventually the Persians. I'd say those are the ones to know. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that's what's created by Western Europe. That's an alliance of Western European countries after World War II to stop the spread of communism in Europe. And it's basically an alliance started by the United States, where the United States promises to help stop Western Europe from becoming communist, and they promise to provide military aid in the event of an attempted communist takeover. So Boris Yeltsin, he is the first democratically elected president of Russia after the Soviet Union collapses and it splits up in all the different countries. Yeltsin is basically going to move Russia towards capitalism. And that's going to open Russia up, allowing for ideally democratic government, though it takes some time. And this is going to allow people who have different ideas to voice them. And so we see a more open society, more people able to be engaged in government. How did Africa decolonize? Some countries through negotiation, but most of the time it's through violent conflict against the European imperial forces. What topics are most likely to be used on the DBQ? I mean, you're probably not going to get a DBQ. You're not going to get a DBQ. You're very unlikely to get a DBQ from something over Unit 1. Maybe the effects of something or responses to something. I don't know. People always want to try and play the game of predicting what is going to be on the DBQ. I don't know. The biggest differences between the Roman Republic and Empire is the Roman Republic is a republican government where the Senate has power, and the Roman Empire is an empire where the emperor has power. Who would you say made more progress towards democracy, Russia or China? Well, oh man, that's a tough one. I don't know. Russia, but barely. To what extent did communism negatively affect? What are you trying to get the answer to the DBQ? I mean, in the end, in the practice DBQ, Drew, didn't you take the practice exam and I gave you that packet that explained it? Is King Ferdinand a part of the Protestant Reformation? No. King Ferdinand is intensely Catholic. He and Isabel are referred to as the Catholic monarchs. They are very not Protestant. Okay, hold on. Slow down with the questions. Hold on. I can't keep up with all these. Okay. empire to fall, World War I and their defeat, and all of the and growing Turkish nationalism led by the Young Turks, coupled with all of the different ethnicities within the empire. Stop asking questions. Slow down. Trends and generalizations for decolonization and globalization. Well, most of the time you're going to see violent rebellions against Europeans. One example of this not really happening is in Ghana, where Kwame Nkrumah basically negotiates his way out of it. In general, you see educated, upper middle class Africans taking power and trying to create democracy, but it almost never works. And so instead you see the African militaries usually seizing power, and that leads to usually authoritarian governments. And then usually these African countries are torn. They're incredibly economically unstable and undeveloped. And so they need help. And if they embrace democracy and capitalism, the US helps them. If they embrace communism, the USSR helps them. Or the major changes and continuities from the Umayyads and Abbasids to the Ottomans. Continuity claiming to be the Caliphate, being a predominantly Muslim empires, obviously controlling the Middle East, which has the holy sites as well as important trade routes. Changes. The Ottomans are probably more tolerant of minorities. Pros and cons of globalization. Pros, you integrate more and more people. It allows for the spread of ideas. And if you're thinking that democracy is a good idea, then it makes it easier for ideas like democracy to spread. Generally, you have access to all sorts of different goods. Cons, think about the Great Depression or the Great Recession. We're all much more connected, and that means that something happening on one side of the world can have an effect on the other. Gosh. Okay. John Maynard Keynes. He's a British economist who his economic theories in the 1930s, basically it says that the best way to get yourself out of a financial depression, recession problem is to spend your way out of it. So it's been happening in Europe recently where people are like, oh, we need austerity. It means we need to cut budgets. We shouldn't be spending money. John Maynard Keynes would say, no, the best way to revive an economy is for people to continue spending, for businesses to expand and hire, for governments to inject money into society, and that's going to help. We need to know. Oh, God. Okay. Do we need to know certain dates of when certain things were established? For example, that. Yeah, it's more, they're never going to ask you specific dates, but it always helps if you know in general. So yeah, Indian National Congress, late 1800s. India gets its freedom right after World War II. Yes, thank you, Tejas. Yes, I can post the rubrics. Oh, Trey, that's like, who the hell is Rebecca Rodriguez? Who are these people? How do they find out about this? Okay. Is that a question, Alea? The decline of colonialism during World War II? What was the Bretton Woods system? Man, I don't know if they're going to ask you about something like that, but it's basically a conference that happens right at the end of World War II that tries to outline financial policy going forward and leads to the creation of all these international financial organizations to help manage world finances. It's the reason why some people think there's like a new world order. If you'd like a private, please consult college providers. Did the Romans practice Caesaropapism? Really, the Byzantines are the best example of that. Did imperialism assist or deter globalization? Great question. Probably in the long run, it assists it because you have Europeans spreading all over the world, and I mean, not saying it's a good thing, but that they spread all over the world, and obviously that connects Europe and the Americas with Africa and Asia. So I'd say it assisted globalization. Yeah. Mandate of Heaven is kind of the Shang, kind of the Zhou. You see it starting to develop during the Shang, but I think it really just gets named in the Zhou. Yes, I don't know why anybody. I do not know why people did not expect the Spanish. It's just a Monty Python sketch. That's right, Salman. Whatever my PowerPoints say are right. I'd always learned it started to develop during the Shang, but it really is kind of becomes a solid theory during the Zhou. Changes and continuities in the role of women over history. Continuity. They always are giving birth to babies. Changes. I mean, you kind of have to go culture by culture, but in general, I mean, you look at how, well, not much changes for them until you get to the 1700s, and really only then, 17 and early 1800s, do you really see a full advocacy for women, the idea of equal rights for women, and being able to move outside the home and have jobs. But you have examples of female authors, you have women who are queens, you have women who are nuns and in charge of abbeys. Did the movable type printing press in Europe develop independently or with the influence of China? It's a matter of debate. There's a lot of debate over whether it developed independently or not. Hard to say. Do we need to know anything about the mythical first? Oh, what, the Xia? XIA? No, not really. Aaron, on a CCOT, how many continuities, how many changes should we have? At least one of each. So if the essay is asking for you what changed and what stayed the same from one period to one period, you got to have at least one of each. I'm always going to say do 3 total. So either do 2 continuities, 1 change, or 2 changes, 1 continuity. It's not going to tell you how many. They'll never tell you how many unless it's a short answer. What the Treaty of Shimonoseki? I don't even know what that is. Who's Alexander Senpai? What was the Spanish Inquisition? That is an official court set up by the Catholic Church in Spain to find out if there are any secret Jews or Muslims or Protestants, and if so, to get them to confess and convert or to kill them. Yeah, what Treaty of Shimonoseki? When is that? China handing over Taiwan and trading rights? To who? Japan? Central texts of Buddhism, just the writings of the Buddha, which are generally referred to as the sutras, Sutras. Which dynasty was in power during the Golden Age of China? That's the Tang and the Sung. Those are generally seen as the Golden Age of China. The Han is like the classical period, but the Tang and the Sung are kind of seen as the Golden Ages. The Berlin Conference was when the European powers were dividing up Africa. That's correct. What were the similarities and differences in the agricultural systems? I don't know what you mean by that. Claire, what are you talking about? I'm not drinking a beer. Thank you very much, Pranav. China was forced to hand over control of Taiwan and grant the Japanese trading rights similar to those it had granted the Europeans. Yeah, that's a specific example of, oh, I think that's signed after the Sino-Japanese War in 1895, something like that. Cultural Revolution in China, basically it's Mao trying to stop any westernization that might have been happening, also to help him purge any people who disagreed with his ideas. Did the Polynesian or Mayans utilize stars first? I don't know. They both did. Treaty of Trent? Huh? Thanks, Alea. Shoot. Polyandry is having more than one husband. Polygamy is in general having more than one spouse. The significance of Polynesian migrations, that's how people populate all those Pacific islands. And you see it's purposeful colonization. Do we need to know the dates of people? No, but you need to know in general when people are around. I mean, you don't want to be talking about Julius Caesar in the 20th century. Council of Trent, that's part of the Counter-Reformation. That's where the Catholic Church gets together. It's called by Pope Paul III, and where they basically double check everything that they believe, and they confirm that, yes, they agree with everything that always believed. Polygyny is having more than one wife. Wow. The Russian Revolution, February 1917, the Tsar steps down because everybody's so upset over a lack of liberal reforms and the fact that Russia is losing World War I. And the provisional government is created. And then October 1917, the Bolsheviks, who are communists, they take over and are going to set up a communist government led by Vladimir Lenin. And that's the beginning of the Soviet Union. Thank you, Evan. How are labor systems in Latin America and Caribbean different from in North America during time period 1450, 1900? I mean, I guess in like British North America, you don't see as much slavery. You see more indentured servitude. Safavid Empire, it's one of the examples of our Muslim gunpowder empires, and they're Shia, whereas everybody else is Sunni. Why'd they kill who if who stepped down? Zayed, you're not. Oh my God. Why is a freshman on here? Okay. Hold on. Slow down. Japanese imperialism, basically, they're living under a rock because of isolation. Yeah, I mean, the Dutch are supposedly keeping them up to date, but it doesn't mean the Japanese are actually industrializing. And yes, they are. Yes, basically, Commodore Perry rolls in and they're like, oh, we are really behind. Sui Dynasty, basically, the only big thing is the building of the Grand Canal. What changes caused religions? Who the hell are Anisha Bagaria? Who are these people? The Warsaw Pact, that is the Soviet Union's response to NATO, that they take all of the communist countries in Eastern Europe and they create an alliance, and the Soviet Union backs up all of the communist Eastern European countries with the military to resist the spread of democracy and capitalism, just like NATO does the opposite. Would it be beneficial to memorize the timeline of the Chinese dynasties? No, just kind of know in general. Do you think it's important to know who? Oh my God. Yes, it's important to know who Genghis Khan is. Holy crap. The 6-Day War was a war between Israel when Israel got attacked by Egypt, Syria, and Jordan. And in the end, it was a surprise attack. And Israel actually ends up gaining territory in all of those countries. It kind of proves that the state of Israel is strong enough to resist even a combined Arab attack. Would the Dutch ever lie to Japan? What was a war that we said should have technically been the First World War, but wasn't? The 7 Years' War. Oh my God. I'll do the Chinese dynasty if people stop texting in. Give me a second to catch up. Holy cow. Okay, I get it. Okay. Chinese dynasties. Shang is the earliest one. That's when we see the development of kind of the earliest forms of Chinese writing. We see the creation of a kind of a centralized state within China. The Zhou, that's when we it's more fragmented, but this is when the Mandate of Heaven really becomes a reality. During the Qin dynasty, that's when China is first really fully unified under one kingdom by Shi Huangdi. That's when we see the mausoleum that's built with all of the terracotta soldiers. For the Han dynasty, this is the classical period in Chinese history. This is when the Silk Road is prominent. This is when you see the creation of the civil service exam in order to make it into the bureaucracy. This is when Confucianism is going to become the prominent belief system in China, where you first start seeing silk production. After that, the Han dynasties collapse. We're going to, after a couple centuries, you're going to get the Sui, who create the Grand Canal that connects the Yellow and Yangtze rivers. What's after that? Sui. Tang. The Tang dynasty, you kind of see a revitalization of the Silk Roads. You see the Chinese, once again, reunifying most of China, both north and south. You have really, it's kind of the golden age of art and literature in China. Woodblock printing, same thing with the Sung. The Sung dynasty is kind of a continuation of that. You see massive population increase in the beginning of urbanization during the Sung dynasty. But the same problem with most of those is there's always northern nomadic peoples that are attacking. So they're, with the weakness of the Song dynasty, you have the Mongols invade. They set up the Yuan dynasty. This is kind of a momentary pause on a lot of major some of your classic ideas about China come to a halt. The Mongols don't use the civil service exam. They don't support I forgot to say during the Tang Dynasty, well, during the Han and in between the Han and Sui and Tang, that's when you see Buddhism come into China. Song Dynasty, you see what some people like to call industrialization. It's a very low level. It's nothing like what happens in Great Britain in the 1700s. The Yuan Dynasty, obviously, as part of the Mongol Empire, is going to expand trade, making it possible for China to really be connected very easily with the rest of the world. The Ming, we're going to see the expansion of the tribute system with the voyages of people like Zhang He. The Ming restore basically everything that had been stopped during the Yuan dynasty because that was Mongols. And after the Ming once again, we see China invaded by the Manchu people, who are northern nomadic peoples. That leads to the formation of the new Qing dynasty. You are going to see massive expansion westwards in China and basically Chinese imperialism. The Qing are going to eventually close themselves off to foreign trade as Europeans start incorporating themselves. I'm not even looking at the chat now, so I don't even know why people are typing in questions. The Qing, remember, are going to create the Canton system in order to limit European expansion, which had started with the Ming when the Jesuits were coming over. In the Qing dynasty, this is eventually when the British forced their way in as a result of the Opium Wars. You have all of these unequal treaties. You see the Taiping Rebellion, one of the worst civil wars in history, partly showing the problems faced as you have new religions in China. Eventually, there is a backlash against Western and foreign influence in China with the Boxer Rebellion. The calls for more liberal reforms is going to lead to the overthrow of the Chinese emperor, and you will see that replaced with attempted democracy. Really, China then just is fought over by warlords, and then it's fought over between the nationalists like Chiang Kai-shek and the communists led by Mao Zedong. Okay. You guys have been talking a lot. Sinification starting in the, well, really even all the way back in the Han Dynasty. Remember, that's just, it's like Westernization or Russification. It's a form of assimilation. What cities mainly? Okay. Zaya, just remember, I teach you next year and you're in Model UN. I wouldn't be in an a-hole right now. Why did communism affect Central American countries? Communism, because as these countries are trying to establish themselves as they're trying to become economically strong, they're going to look for support. And they know that if they go communist, the USSR will support them. If they go with capitalism and democracy, the United States will support them. And so a lot of times they try and play each side off of each other. D-Day is significant. It's really the beginning of the end of Germany. 1944, it's the invasion of France and leading to the end of the war. Which was the first Boer state in South Africa? Boersland? What was the... Um, okay. Uh, Island hopping, Madison, that is the strategy that the United States uses in the Pacific because the Pacific is a giant ocean with just islands. And so the Americans just go island to island to island, getting closer and closer to Japan because each island that they capture provides them with an air base to bomb Japan or a naval base so that they can refuel their ships and take over more Japanese territorial waters. Um, oh man, Alexander Senpai, you're so close to getting kicked out. Keep it up. How many students got a 5 last year? More than the last 2 years, the 2 years before that combined. Who the hell is Anita Longwan? If I don't recognize your name, I'm just not going to answer your question. What was the main reason for the British East India Company in the first place? Because you have a company that allows, instead of an individual merchant trying to raise enough money to go sail halfway around the world, you have a bunch of people put their money together. It helps them share risk. It's going to be much easier if you can get 100 people to contribute $5,000 than one person to contribute $500,000. How did the Byzantine Empire fall? Well, it gets encroached upon on all sides, and you have the rise of the Islamic caliphates, which are much, much stronger, and they take over. Hi, KG. Alea, the Lusitania, it's a passenger ship. It's not a warship, but German U-boats sink it, and it happens in 1915, so it doesn't directly lead to the United States getting involved in the war. There are a lot of Americans on the ship. Does Taoism fit in exactly with Chinese? Is it just there after it's introduced, or does it become prominent at some point? I mean, people still use it in China. So Taoism is along with Confucianism, really kind of developing. You see during the Han Dynasty. Who really owned Israel in the first place? I don't know how to answer that question. I mean, different groups have lived there over the past thousands of years. Whereas you don't know my. Are you talking about in general the amount of people who got a 5, or just for me? I will slow down when your comments slow down. And bye-bye, Anita. Yes, Salma, the United States did attempt to stop communism from spreading to Japan. This is fun blocking people. Madara, you're close to getting kicked out too. Hi, Sarah. Well, I don't even know what your question was. Hey, so in England, why did the English Commonwealth change to Lord Protector after their? Oh man, you're getting so specific. That's just the title. After they get rid of the king, the Puritans take over, and Oliver Cromwell takes the title Lord Protector. He's basically the president of England for about 10 years. Yeah. When did legalism take less effect in China? I mean, it's only really used by the Qin. That's really the only notable time that you see the legalism used is by the Qin dynasty. Yes, Joe, that is a good definition of Neo-Confucianism. Confucianism, that kind of mixes with Buddhist beliefs to make it a little more appealing. I'm not trying to knock you down, Alea. I just don't want you to freak out about the little stuff. I feel like there's a question I missed. Jihad. Jihad, that's a term. Technically, it can just mean struggle or fight. That can be a personal inner spiritual struggle, if you're struggling with pride. But what's going to happen is that it oftentimes is also used as a justification for a religiously motivated war. And so that's what you see. Sometimes the Crusades, when Muslims are fighting in the Crusades, they use that term. Also with Muslim extremist terrorist groups, they like to use the term jihad now. Cardinal is basically the top position in the Catholic Church hierarchy, just below Pope. You can wear shorts tomorrow if they're as down to your knees. Japan is affected by the Great Depression because you have a globalized economy. So remember, what starts on one side of the world, everything's connected, and so that's really damaging for Japan as well. And the Congress of Vienna, remember, that's what ends the Napoleonic Wars. That's not related to Japan. Yes, you need to wear a school shirt. Look on my website, and you have instructions for exam day. Yes, I can, Evan. NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. This is an alliance started by the United States after World War II with all of the democratic capitalist countries in Western Europe to resist the spread of communism after World War II. You should know that the Vietnam War is an example of a proxy war during the Cold War, that it's while it's the North Vietnamese fighting against the South Vietnamese, and they're both backed up. The North Vietnamese are communists. They're backed up by China and the USSR. You have the South Vietnamese backed up by the United States. Yes, that's right, Joe, about Sunni and Shia. The Congress of Vienna, that's when you have all the politicians get together at the end of the Napoleonic Wars, and they want to keep conservative monarchies in power. They do not want all of the liberal reforms of the Enlightenment. And they also want to keep the balance of power. They do not want one country being too strong. They don't want another Napoleon. I don't know who Jean-Baptiste is. Yes, the Korean War is a proxy war. League of Nations was unsuccessful in the United States because the United States kind of had this isolationist policy. They did not want to get sucked into all of the turmoil that was going on in the rest of the world, and especially after World War I. You know, you have over 100,000 American soldiers die in a war that a lot of Americans said doesn't affect them. So they were afraid the League of Nations was going to get them pulled into future wars, and so they're going to reject it. They don't want the problems on one side of the world affecting the United States. Woodrow Wilson gave the idea for the League of Nations. The Cold War. The Cold War, it is not, the reason it's called the Cold War is because you do not have the Soviet Union and the United States actually going to war with each other. It's really a war of ideas. And so victory in the Cold War is seen as other countries are deciding which side to take. The US or the Soviet Union is going to support the people who practice the same political and economic theories as they do. Reaganomics, that's, you're probably not going to get anything about that. That's really more of a U.S. history idea of injecting money into the economy to keep it stimulated. Persian Gulf War is an example of continuing unrest in the Middle East. You have Saddam Hussein, who is the dictator of Iraq. He invades Kuwait for their oil, and the United States responds. We send in an army, and in about 6 weeks, we've practically taken over Iraq, but we decide to leave. Hi, Kamara. No, Reaganomics is not used to try and counter the Great Depression, Nick. FDR's New Deal important in what context? Hi, Sheila. Oh my God, Evan, do you not have anything better to do? You may need to know the New Deal just in passing as responses to the Great Depression, but I would not. It wouldn't blow me away if they had no mention of it. No, the Byzantines were around before the Great Schism. Great Schism. That's why you need to know. That's why dates do help. Did the space race affect economies? Yeah, because the Soviet Union and the United States spend billions and billions of dollars on trying to race for space. That's an example of the Cold War. It's whoever can get there first, it's seen as a victory for either democracy and capitalism or for communism. Norali, I don't. There was. I looked in it, and there was homework that had your name in it. Hi, OJ. Alea, stop focusing on British history during the 1600s. African empires and what they are known for. I don't know which African empires you're talking about. Like Mali, Ghana, Songhai, you see kind of centralized kingdoms in West Africa that have embraced Islam, that are oftentimes investing in education, that are heavily involved in the trade along the Niger River. Yes, you're probably going to want to know the political spectrum, Joe, of liberal and conservative. Liberals open to kind of Enlightenment idea reforms, giving more freedoms and rights to individuals, whereas conservatives want to restrict power to the traditional people who had been ruling. So aristocracies. We talked about the Warsaw Pact at one of the after-school sessions. It's a response to NATO. Sometimes this session makes me very terrified for y'all. The Meiji Restoration, that is the Japanese people realizing that their country is way behind the rest of the world, and so they replace the shogun with an emperor who is much more open and modern, so that they can industrialize and catch up with the rest of the world. No, France is not still a monarchy. The only major shogunate you need to know is the Tokugawa shogunate, which was basically maintained the medieval structure in Japan from the 16 through the mid 1800s, eventually closing off Japan from the rest of the world. General trends and effects of Islam and the spread of it that connected Africa. Well, as Islam spreads mostly through trade to West Africa, you're going to see rulers adopt it. Remember, the general population does not. It's going to help connect them to the stronger Islamic caliphates in the Middle East. You're going to see it used to encourage education. You're going to see law transformed. All right, so here's how the exam breaks down. 20% of the exam is over units one and two, and then 20% over unit 3, 20% over unit 4, 20% over unit 5, 20% over unit 6. What other civilizations would Harappa and Mohenjo-daro trade with? Basically, other Central Asian, Persian, Indian relationships. At what point did the European colonies in Africa become independent? Did you look at this PowerPoint? 1950s, 1960s? I don't know, Kamar. I didn't really look at it. I was really close to just throwing it away. Islamic fundamentalism, any fundamentalism is this idea that you need to get back down to the core original beliefs, and that if you disagree with that, then you are not truly part of that religion. It's a very strict interpretation, and so for Islam, it's specifically that. You will get a snack break halfway through the test. You're welcome, KG. Charlemagne was a European king. He's the first real attempt by a European ruler to unify Europe after the collapse of the Roman Empire. He kind of uses feudalism in order to keep power. He is very closely aligned with the Catholic Church, which gives him legitimacy. What is the relationship between gender and politics in 20th century Latin America? I have no clue. I don't know. All right, some of you guys are asking me questions that are like essays, which makes me think that you found an essay question and you don't know how to answer it. Think about most of those trade routes. Similarities and differences between Indian Ocean trade, Trans-Saharan trade, and Silk Roads. Luxury goods being traded by a merchant class. Indian Ocean is over water. Trans-Saharan trade and Silk Roads are over land. Soviet Union entered World War II, technically 1941 when Germany attacks them. Evan, are you trying to show off? I don't get it. Christie, the Mauryan and Gupta empires absolutely interacted. They're trading along the Silk Roads with Persia and China and Greece. Sebastian, you will not be able to have a water bottle while taking the test. For the Crusades of the preserving of Greek Roman texts, how did it impact its relationship between the Middle East and Europe? It's just as Christian crusaders are spending time in the Middle East fighting, they're going to partially be exposed to some of the ideas that Arabs had been preserving for 1,000 years. South American economies after independence are still very dominant on exporting raw materials to Europe and the United States. And so as a result, the governments are really weak and corrupt. Justinian and Theodora, they're the emperor and empress of the Byzantines. Justinian, probably your strongest Byzantine emperor, showing the concept of Caesaropapism, where he is the head of the empire, but he also has authority over the church. He also creates the Justinian law, which takes the Roman law and reorganizes it, makes it simplified. So which Russian rulers did what? I mean, Vladimir the Great of the Kievan Rus is going to begin to unify Russia and adopt Eastern Orthodoxy. Ivan III breaks free from the Mongols. Ivan IV begins a real period of expansion. Peter the Great begins westernization. Catherine the Great continues it and begins to expand. Alexander II frees the serfs. Nicholas II, you see him really fail to change as a result of the 1905 and revolution, and then he gets forced to step down during World War I. What really occurred before the Neolithic Revolution? Hunting and gathering. Yeah. During what time period, Madeline? Alea. Well, you see, it's a pretty de-urbanized population in Europe during the Middle Ages, and during the 14th century, you see a drastic decline because that's when the bubonic plague or the Black Death happens. Yes, you should know the 14 points. Didn't I summarize it in the PowerPoint? The ideas of self-determination, creating the League of Nations, trying to avoid future war. Okay, so Europeans moving out of Europe in the 1800s. Well, as you see, increasing urbanization, the population growth, the lack of available land, people trying to escape the despair of European cities during industrialization. They moved to the colonies and places like the United States because there's a better standard of living, more land. How is Martin Luther's 95 Thesis or whatever important? I don't know. What did it start? You guys are... All right. Pause on the questions. I'm not angry. I want you to ask questions, but some of you guys are kind of asking questions that are really obvious, and it's really clearly stated in the notes that I gave you. Martin Luther's 95 Theses start the Protestant Reformation. He points out all of these problems that the Catholic Church has and that he wants to address, and in the end he gets in trouble for it, and so his disagreements are going to eventually lead to a major split in Christianity. Yes, the Rosetta Stone was found not by Napoleon personally, but by his army when he invaded Egypt in the early 1800s or late 1700s. Can you recap the different events that led to the breakdown of periods? I mean, there's a lot of them. What's the most common ways of decline between most dynasties? I mean, think about every time we talk about China, it's corrupt and ineffective officials. It's usually decline in food production. You have invasion from the outside. You have famine and disease. It all just leads to a general inability of a government to maintain order. The Battle of Dien Bien Phu, it's just the defeat of the French by the Vietnamese, and it's going to lead to Vietnam becoming an independent country. Bye, Evan. Why did Karl Marx believe in socialism? Because he thought that capitalism created class struggle, which is the cause of chaos in society, basically. The examination system is stopped because people are cheating, and people are cheating on it, and then people are bribing their way to get into the bureaucracy without actually taking it. And so in the end, they just kind of figure out like it's not working. Yes. The title of Caesar is taken from Julius Caesar, one of his names, and then it's used as a title going forward. But the first Roman emperor is not Julius Caesar. It's his nephew and the person he kind of appoints to replace him, and that is Octavian, who is also known as Caesar Augustus. Why was the Suez Canal so important? What is it? Think about where is it located and what does it allow you to do much more easily? It's going to allow the British and eventually anybody else to travel much faster from Europe to Asia without having to sail all the way around Africa. The First Crusade, what empire did the Islamic Empire capture Jerusalem from? In the First Crusade, it's the Europeans who captured Jerusalem from the Muslims. Joe, not totally. The Japanese do use Confucianism to some extent. That's part of the Taika reforms in the 600s, where they actually legally, officially adopt Confucianism, which has varying levels of impact. Sarah, going back to your question from before, think about the why history is broken down into those phases. 600 BCE, why is that a transition point? Because you see the birth of a lot of new major religions like Confucianism, Taoism, Judaism, Buddhism. 600 CE, that's all of your classical empires have collapsed. And starting in 600, you're going to see the rise of some new phases of empires, like, well, your Islamic empires. You're going to see the revitalization of China. 1450. Why is that a turning point? Europeans finding out about the Americas and incorporating them into the world. Why is 1750 a turning point? The Enlightenment, industrialization, and all of the political revolutions that began. Why is 1900 a turning point? World War I. World War I is such an impactful event. Yes, when you 600 to 1450, you see in Europe and Japan, and even in parts of the Middle East, you see feudalism. British East India Company takes control of India because the French are also competing for control in that area, and the French and their Indian allies are defeated by the British. The Mughal Empire had also been supporting and was fighting against the British East India Company, and so once they're defeated, it allows the British East India Company to take over. The heck is John Pham? Gupta India is invaded by the Huns. Japan's golden age. Probably Tokugawa shogunate. 30 Years' War, remember, that's primarily a religious war fought in Europe, where you have the different princes and kings really fighting over their right to decide if their kingdom is going to be Protestant or Catholic. And a lot of those Protestants, a lot of the reason that they're like Germans who are fighting to be Protestant, it means that if you're not Catholic, you don't have to listen to what the Pope said. And the Pope was an incredibly powerful figure. So it's an incredibly destructive war. Millions are killed. And in the end, with the Peace of Westphalia, you're going to see that right given to leaders where individual kings and queens and princes are able to decide the religion of their population. And you're also going to start to see some borders standardize in Europe, and we'll see the birth of the nation state, that idea that a country, a state, is predominantly populated by a similar ethnic group. Domino theory, the idea that if one country falls to communism, then the surrounding countries will fall to communism, and so on, just like a series of dominoes. Grand Canal for Sui Dynasty, building a canal connecting the Yellow and Yangtze rivers. A North Hill shirt you need to wear tomorrow. Um, did nationalism play a part in the 30 Years' War? It's starting to develop. Yeah, you could say that. Mary E. The Winter War. I mean, that's fought between Russia and Finland. I don't know what the Moscow Peace Treaty is. Uh, Humanism is to Confucianism as Machiavelli is. Maybe Machiavelli to. I don't know about that. Manasa. Um, Humanism is to Confucianism as Machiavelli is to legalism. Uh, Britain granting Canada self-ruled. It's just a primarily white colony that really doesn't have that many resources, and Canada kind of did what it was expected of it, especially during World War One, contributing hundreds of thousands of troops who fought really bravely in Europe. Yes, the four Khanates emerge because of the death of Genghis Khan, and there's no real successor who is able to keep control of the massive Mongol Empire. Can we relate that to Alexander? No. Domino theory? I need some ice cream. Filial piety, continue anywhere after China. Yeah, Korea, Japan, Southeast Asia, probably. Influence of China and Japan. Could you say that basic copy of China minus foot binding? In a way, not always to the total same extent, but there's still a reverence for your elders and your ancestor. Confucianism is partially used in the government. There was a time of reason. The time of peace during the Mongol Empire is the Pax Mongolica. Yes, very good, Drew and Sarah and Jalen. Yes. What country related to the Ottomans with the use of civil service and a bureaucracy? Well, I mean, which which society is probably the best known for having a civil service and a bureaucracy? Yes, you should know social Darwinism. It's a really important concept. Were all of the Amerindian civilizations patriarchal? Yeah, pretty. I mean, all of the big ones. Ibn Battuta, Muslim traveler all around the world, kind of documenting the influence of Islam. He's very conservative. Did conquistadors such as Cortez or Pizarro assimilate with the natives of lands they conquered? They mostly just the conquistadors do not assimilate. Like, you mean, do the conquistadors assimilate to native cultures? No, they generally uh, no, they generally kill them and enslave them. Um, we say that as a political social pattern. Yeah, I think I'd be safe to talk about patriarchy as a pattern. Um, yeah. What happened to the Chinese Republic after it was overthrown by warlords? Well, it's overthrown, so it doesn't exist anymore. And in the 1920s, you see the creation of the Kuomintang, which is the Chinese Nationalist Party. It's kind of democratic, led by Chiang Kai-shek, and um, the Kuomintang fights against the there we go. Fights against the growing communist Chinese Communist Party, which so then the Kuomintang Chinese nationalists are fighting a civil war against Chinese communists. They're doing that even while Japan is invading during World War II. And then after the war, the Chinese communists win. Like, did the natives adapt some of the conquistadors' cultures? In other words, were the missionaries successful? Yeah, absolutely. The Jesuits, though, are separate from the conquistadors. Conquistadors are just there to conquer and hopefully get a hacienda. But yeah, absolutely, the natives are going to adopt a lot of European culture. I mean, think about Latin America today. It's predominantly Catholic. Most of the people speak Spanish or Portuguese. I think sweatpants are a no, from what I've been told. And shorts have to be to your knees. Siege of Vienna is just the height of Ottoman expansion into Europe. That's as far as they get and are pushed back. And that happens. Actually, I think it happens twice, most notably under Suleiman the Magnificent. Man, it's really calmed down. That first hour and a half was kind of exhausting. I guess once all the juniors left and it kicked off all of the annoying people. It's died. It says I still have 51 viewers. Sweatpants are workout pants if you're kind of skeezy. I said what was on your paper. Appeasement is the policy where before World War II starts, Hitler and Germany are starting to expand. They take over parts of Czechoslovakia and Austria, and the League of Nations and Great Britain and France, they let Hitler keep doing this, hoping to appease him, hoping to say, okay, we'll let you get away with this, just don't do anything else. We'll let you get away with that, just don't do anything else. They're just trying to avoid going to war. They're afraid if they put their foot down, Hitler's going to attack. Relations between Persians and Arabs, 614-50. The Arabs with Islam, they're going to begin. They begin their expansion with the Abbasid Caliphate. You actually see the Abbasids. The ruling class are predominantly Persian, and a lot of these Islamic caliphates are going to take political ideas from the Persians. So having a bureaucracy, having a strong leader. Yeah, shorts are okay, but they have to be down to your knees. Oh, that's good. Why did the Catholic Church not like the church to celebrate vernacular? They thought that Latin, because the Bible is when the Bible is formalized in the early centuries, it's done during the reign of the Roman Empire, and so it's done in Latin, even though it was written in Greek. And Latin is predominantly spoken by the church, and it allows them to keep control, because the priests, by the time you get into the Middle Ages, the priests are the only ones who continue to speak Latin, and so they're needed. You have to have the priests around to tell you what the Bible says, because by the time you get into the 1400s, almost nobody speaks Latin. Same thing with Hinduism. The Hindu priests, the Brahmins, are the only ones who speak Sanskrit, which is what all of the holy texts of Hinduism are written in, and so you need them to read the texts and perform the rituals. Why does Germany take all the blame for World War I again? Because basically they're forced to admit it as part of the Treaty of Versailles, because they don't. When Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia and all of the alliances start pulling people in, there was still a chance actually to stop the war, and Germany pushed ahead in they wanted the war to happen. What did the French Revolution lead to? The death of the king and queen, the attempted creation of a democracy in France. Eventually it leads to the Napoleonic Wars because everybody else in Europe attacks them. Yeah, and then it leads to the Congress of Vienna, and so a return to conservative ideology. Khedives are the title of the Egyptian rulers after Muhammad Ali Pasha kind of revolts against Ottoman rule. Oh, Alvin Matthew, wow, that hurts. Yeah, you guys make such a big deal about what you wear to the test. I don't really care, but if you're wearing something you're not allowed to, they might not let you take the test. So just wear jeans and a North Hill shirt and move on. Yes, written in Latin instead of the local language. Yes, you're right, Joe. Something called Vatican II um, pushes towards the vernacular. Overall changes 1450 to 1750, technological innovation, strengthening of political organization, economic prosperity. Think about the big thing 1450, you have the incorporation of the Americas into the world, basically. And so you're going to have um, African slavery expand. You're going to see exploration. You're going to see colonization all over the world, the growth of Europe into a major world power. Christianity spreads into America because Catholic missionaries go over after Europeans land there. Advantages of Russia over Napoleon, other than winter and territorial knowledge. They use the strategy of um, oh my gosh, what is it? Scorched earth. They burn everything. The Russian army retreats and burns everything behind them so that the French have nothing. They can't scrounge for any food. Oh, Sarah, not making any friends. Joe, was that why directed at me? I don't remember what you asked. Yeah, it could. Yeah, Christianity can be cultural diffusion. Did the Jesuits inspire trade demands with the Qing? I don't think so. Oh, good news. We're about to have a visitor. Hey, get out of there. Daisy, come here. Daisy, come here. Hey, puppy, get up. Oh, gosh. Hey. Look. Hey, puppy. Look. Wave hi. Wave hi. Look, you're not looking. Hey, puppy. Whoa. Ow. Bye, Daisy. I guess she doesn't like me. What caused the Tanzimat reforms? The increasing weakness of the Ottoman Empire and westernization. Yeah, Daisy's kind of the best. Oh, wow, I got some people to come alive. Leanne, welcome. Welcome to the show. Oh, Ryan Kwan. All right. Michael Rudolph loves dogs because he doesn't like humans. You were warned for sending too many messages? By who? Hey, HYT, guess what? I've gotten more comments than you, so peace out. Oh, Leanne, just like in class, sitting in the back, quietly soaking it all in. Oh, that's Who Ye? Wow. Man. Oh, Carolina, you're live. Daisy, come back. Come here. Yay. Oh, so sweet. Oh, you tired? Yeah, you're tired. No, don't lick my hand. Ugh, God, stop. All right, Daisy. Now you're annoying me. Okay. Look, a ball. Silly dogs. She. Yeah, I wish I could bring her. Unfortunately, some teacher brought their dog a year ago and got in trouble, so no pets at school. Importance of Berlin-Baghdad Railway, industrialization happening in the Ottoman Empire. It also helps explain why Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottomans are allies during World War I. Oh, hi, Miranda. Oh, Perla, you're around. What are some key years to remember? I don't know. Anytime I've asked you in class, 476, 1453, 1789, 1914, 1945. Corgis are the best. When was the scientific revolution accepted? ACC accepted. Not until like the late 1800s. Not funny, Genesis. 1453, fall of Constantinople, yes. What was the Songhai Empire in Africa? Just another example of one of these centralized kingdoms in West Africa that traded a lot, gold, salt slaves along the trans-Saharan trade, adopted Islam. Who was bigger? You mean what was bigger? Alexander's empire is bigger. The Mongols are bigger than both. What were the major periods of thinking revivals? You could call them intellectual movements. Think about the Italian Renaissance. You can talk about the age of Greek rationalism. Think about Plato, Socrates, Aristotle. You could talk about the Islamic Golden Age with all of the mathematicians and scientists there. You can talk about the Golden Age of India with mathematics during the Gupta period. You could, scientific revolution, Enlightenment. Safavid Empire, most known for being a Muslim gunpowder empire, and of the three that we covered, it's the only one that are Shia Muslims as opposed to Sunni. I want Leanne to ask a question. Leanne, what's on your mind? What don't you understand to get you ready for the test tomorrow? Anything for you, Parabash? The Safavid rulers claim to be descendants of Ali because they are Shia. Man, you're the best. I don't know if you secretly hate me because I always do this to you, but I just like hearing from you. Guernica is important because it not only points out the destruction that's happening in the Spanish Civil War, most notably by the fascists, but it's also a great example of modernist painting and how it's used to express frustration about life in general, but especially the chaos of war. I'm not even going to answer that, Trey. Shahrazad! What are some specifics we need to know about the Cold War? Who was on each side? What ideas they were fighting over? How the fighting happened? Do I think Neolithic or Paleolithic eras are going to be important? There will probably be one stimulus multiple choice on it. Like there will probably be one stimulus with 3 multiple choice questions about that, and that'll be it. Maybe there will be a short answer about it. Is that a link? Why is my name in color? I don't understand. Yes, the synthesis can be located anywhere in the paper. It's generally probably going to be easiest to do it somewhere in a body paragraph, but you can also do it in the conclusion. Banana Republic. No, I don't really shop there, Alea. So if you're maybe to J.Crew or Amazon or, yeah, I'd probably prefer that. Thanks, though, for thinking about me. No, guys, I don't want gift cards to the Banana Republic. Like J.Crew, Brooks Brothers, maybe for some new dress clothes, Amazon for books. Really, I appreciate it, though. Huns and White Huns, they're all just these nomadic groups that invade and lead to the downfall of various classical civilizations. Okay. In reality, banana republics, these are Latin American countries that have very weak governments, and they have monocultures. They have those single cash crops. And so outside corporations, multinational corporations come in who are exporting those cash crops. And to make sure that their business is able to thrive and is protected, oftentimes these corporations will basically take over the government of these Latin American countries. And so they're oftentimes referred to as banana republics. I've seen a lot of movies. Would you ever like to visit Potosi? Yeah, I think there's some other places I'd rather visit first. I mean, I want to go to South America, well, or again, Potosi itself isn't exactly a fun city to visit from what I've heard of. Somebody hears the dog is gone, but thanks, Miranda. Can you through which architectural features go with the different empires, like how domes and oh, I forgot to post something for you guys. Hold on. I'm gonna post something that's gonna help. See, Leanne, this is what happens when you ask questions. You make me think of things. That's good. There's a PowerPoint of images that are really helpful. So let's post that. Wait, where is it? Must know visuals. There we go. Come on, load. Probably taking too much bandwidth on here. Uh-oh, oh good God. Hold on, Leanne, I'm going to get to your question. Was Taoism as impactful as Confucianism? Maybe not quite, because Confucianism is more concerned with political and social interactions, but Taoism is still pretty prominently still a prominent influence on Chinese people's lifestyles. Accomplishments of the Babylonians, Sumerians, Hittites. These are just early Middle Eastern empires. We see monumental architecture. We see the development of military technology, the Hittites, most notably for creating chariots. You have city-states. You have the role of kings using religion in order to keep power. I can't tell if Michael and Dhruv are being sarcastic. This is asked about consolidation of power. When you consolidate, remember, it means like bringing together and strengthening. Bring together, you take over all this territory, but how are you going to connect everything, and how are you going to assert your power over it? Are the Shang and Zhou dynasties important? Shang and Zhou dynasties, because these are our earliest dynasties that begin to unite China, that begin to create a Chinese identity with Chinese language, with political organization like the Mandate of Heaven, transnational and multinational corporations, because that's an example of businesses expanding all over the world, that they are selling goods all over the world, that they're getting resources to make those goods from all over the world. They have headquarters all over the world. The Xia, they're not really that important. Bronze Age and Iron Age, that's just early Paleolithic societies and the different metals that they use to make tools. Yes, the Rig Veda gives us the origins of Hinduism and the caste system. Japanese authoritarianism during World War II. Look at the PowerPoint. The Japanese increase the importance of the emperor. The military takes more and more power. They say that the Japanese people are superior to other Asians and thus have the right to expand. Am I trying to teach? Oh man, I'm going to kick you off just because it sounds like you're making fun of me. Yes, thank you, Genesis. yes, multinational, transnational corporations are examples of globalization, of how the world economy has actually made the world smaller. Yes, the Green Revolution, Norman Borlaug developing, it's the idea of genetic engineering for our food, and how we're able to make food items more resistant to disease, how they are made larger, made to taste better. And the Legend 20, oh dang it. And everybody say goodbye to the Legend 27. Bye. Yes, the yellow peril. Oh, yeah, the yellow peril. The idea of the yellow peril is oftentimes the yellow peril is oftentimes directed at all Asians because, white people aren't good at telling the difference between Japanese and Korean. Okay. Bye. Ishan Goel? No, it wasn't. You guys are lying. All right. I just posted a PowerPoint that points out some important visuals, images that you may see. So take a look at that and go over it. Leanne, shoot, I got to go back and find your question. You asked something about oh my God, where did her question go? Here we go. Can you go through which architectural features go with different empires? Okay, so all right, first ancient Olympic Games, 776 BCE. Architectural features, think of domes are first really developed by the Romans. Very good. You think of churches laid out in that cross format. Think Gothic architecture. When you think, same with the Romans, arches. For the Byzantines, it's that very flat, elongated depictions of people. In Islamic art, think about what a mosque looks like with its minarets. You have Islamic art. You don't see depictions of people. It's always shapes and colors and floral motifs. Look back at the depictions of Chinese temples and buildings, that style of architecture there, which you also see in Japan and Korea. The onion-shaped domes that are popular on Orthodox churches. Look at St. Basil's Cathedral. The Greeks and Romans with their the columns, Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian. What would be my guess on which time period they would focus on the most? I don't have to guess. I can tell you. 20% of the exam, unit period 1 and 2. 20% unit 3. 20% unit 4. 20% unit 5. 20% unit 6. Oh my gosh. Mr. Butler. Yes, propaganda is effective because think about with World War I, it makes you want to be part of something. It uses images that appeal to people, that they're part of a community, and that if you don't follow along with these ideas, that you're not part of that. It oftentimes propaganda is used to scare you about some external threat. Think about all of the anti-German and anti-Japanese propaganda that we looked at during World War II. Who's Paul? Paul told me his dad was watching this. Keck. Can you guys just speak in English? No, there are no explanations for the important visuals. You have to do that yourself. Shoot, there's a question. Are there people from Asia, like Indians, also victims of the yellow peril? I'm guessing this is a cool. No, not really. Why was Victoria crowned Empress of India? Because India, remember, is the crown jewel of the British Empire. And so it's one of her titles. Oh. Oh, hi, Trio. I was wondering what you were up to. That's not. Do we need to know Stuart restoration? Not really. I mean, it's just the idea that after the English Civil War, when the Puritans take over for that short period of time, that you have the restoration. They restore the Stuart dynasty to being the kings of England. Could you connect Prague and the Arab Spring? Prague Spring and the Arab Spring? Yeah, I mean it's pro-democratic revolutions. While the Prague Spring isn't, well, you might say that neither are really successful, but they're both attempts by a population to try and get democratic reforms. Oh, hi Zane. Was the relationship between? Okay, cool. I think that was a DBQ, so I would have to look at the DBQ for the documents. I don't think that was just a random long essay question. Do I know Masuru Mambodi, the African warlord? Not personally. So the nationalism. The way that nationalism used when it was first introduced has changed during. No, not really. Nationalism, kind of that idea has stayed relatively the same over the past 200 years. What do you mean there's a ghost behind me? That's not funny. Bye, John V. / Amrita. Did the expansion for Africa result in any conflicts between the African countries? Not really. Sometimes the Europeans play different Africans off of each other. It's really African on African violence is going to become a problem with decolonization. And after the Europeans leave, then you have the Africans fighting against each other for control. Did communist states support female equality? To be honest, yeah. Oftentimes, communist ideology oftentimes says that women can do just about everything that men can do and are really expected to do that, especially when it comes to work, whether it's in factories or in agriculture. But oftentimes, you still don't see them taking all of the same, being extended all the same opportunities in regards to education, or you hardly see any women involved in actually political positions. Non-aggression pact, that's what the Soviet Union and Germany signed at the beginning of World War II so that they didn't attack each other when Germany invaded Eastern Europe. Who's they? You guys are freaking me out. Diocletian's breakup of the Roman Empire be connected with the Mongols splitting up their empire into khanates? Maybe? Quick question, will the test talk at all about 9/11 and the terrorist attacks? It's possible. They could bring that up. 20% will be about Unit 6. Not might, it will be. That's how they organize the exam. What are the major schisms you should know? The Great Schism, leading to the creation of Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy, the split in Christianity that leads to Protestantism breaking off, the split in Buddhism to Mahayana and Theravada. I don't like you at all right now, Alea. That freaks me out. I don't believe in ghosts, but I got a random text from somebody that said, look behind you. And so now I'm nervous. All right, I hate you all. Freaking me out. Because he has to be so much more invested in nuclear warheads and having an arms race with the USSR as opposed to someone like the UK? Well, because they have different political ideologies. Jalen, that's not funny. I saw Unfriended. I actually thought it was really good, but it's also really scary. I'm just going to not worry about what's over there because I'm safe. Nobody's going to kill me tonight. I don't watch anime because I am a intelligent, attractive male who sometimes hangs out with girls, so I don't need anime. Daisy will protect me. Oh my gosh, the exam ends probably sometime between 11:30 and 12. The country that's on top of my bucket list, and probably I'd say Russia, Turkey. Russia or Turkey. Now I have two roommates. Oh, Thomas, that is definitely not a question I'm going to answer. If given the chance, would I visit North Korea for a week? If I had the promise that I was going to get to come home at the end of that week, yes. You're confused about the Olmec head. What are you confused about? It's the Olmecs, and it's a giant basalt head, probably representing their rulers. Parabesh, that's funny. I don't get the whole raisin things with Zane, but maybe I don't want to know. No, Genesis, he's still here. He's just out having fun, and I'm at home doing a live chat with 15-year-olds. I would go to Sicily. I don't know who Napoleon Bonaparte is. I mean, I know who he is. I don't know who he is here. He's about to get blocked. Sorry, Kirk, 16-year-olds. I would bring a pen just to be safe. Oh, by the way, Mr. Butler says hello, good luck tomorrow, and that he's been enjoying the live chat, which he has been a part of. I'm sure you can use mechanical pencils as long as it's number 2. I don't have to tell him that Paul is trolling it. He's probably who you think is Paul. I'm sure you can use mechanical pencils. I don't know, though. United States imperialism hinders. Thank you. A question. Um, United States imperialism hindered the growth of Latin America because we allowed American corporations to basically take over countries. We supported authoritarian dictators that didn't allow for local development. There are going to be 4 short answers. Tomorrow you'll have 50 minutes to answer them. That's why we practice them all year. I don't believe in ghosts. Whoa, Layla, good job. You're quoting me. That'll help you with the DBQ tomorrow. Yes, America would back up anybody who supposedly aligned with capitalism, at least. Like Augusto Pinochet in Chile. He was a horribly brutal dictator, but he's capitalist, and so. Oh my God. Noah, don't use the R word. Okay. If nobody has any questions, I'm going to shut it down. Oh, congratulations. Everyone say goodbye to Napoleon. If I was a Christian, the Ottoman Empire would ever be persecuted. Legally, you would be protected. That doesn't mean that it didn't happen. Yeah, if you guys are jerks on here, I'm going to kick you off. I don't even think these people I'm kicking off are even go to the school. How would the birth of Christianity be considered a turning point? I don't know. Think about the world before Christianity and the world after Christianity. Josh Miller, amen. Which Chinese empire? Dynasty. Chinese dynasty can be considered the most impactful. Man, it's tough to say. The Han, the Tang. When did climate change have big enough effect to weaken the Ming dynasty? Because it leads to a decrease in the amount of food that is produced, which means you have a population that's upset. And remember, when those natural disasters happen, people think that they've lost the mandate of heaven. No, Salma, think about the world before Christianity. Think about the world after Christianity. Think about all that. Think about the big changes. Which empires were religiously tolerant? Yikes. The Ottomans at times. Sometimes you're the Umayyads and Abbasids. Yeah, that's good, Thomas. I like that. Early 1800s, though. Jack, welcome to the program. If Bert Dana, wow, we got some new additions. I wish Bert the Turtle was on the exam. Did the Ottomans adapt some of the cultures of the lands they controlled? They do adopt some ideas from the Byzantines, yeah. When countries like gain prominence in the Indian Ocean trade, well, controlling those port cities means that you are making a lot of money off of the trade. Or some significant differences highlights of the Umayyad and Abbasid dynasties. Umayyad spread of Islam Abbasids, you see incorporation of Persian ideas. You see the Islamic Golden Age, the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. Bandstra, I have the terrible, except he's cold. Thanks, Joe. What was the self-burning in Buddhism? That was just Thich Quang Duc. He's a Buddhist monk who was protesting the South Vietnamese government that was persecuting Buddhists. Yes, self-immolation, setting yourself on fire. Not technically sati. That's different. That's widows setting themselves on fire. He's not a Tibetan, but yeah, good. There's a connection between the Arab slave trade and the Atlantic slave trade. You have Arabs in East Africa and you have Europeans in West Africa, and they're both purchasing enslaved Africans and taking them out of Africa to perform work. Non-aligned movement are newly independent countries who do not align, who do not make themselves allied with either the United States or the Soviet Union. So Ghana, Egypt, Indonesia, Yugoslavia. They say we're not going to be part of one side or the other. There is no most important. Units 1 and 2 will be 20% of the exam. Unit 3, 20%. Unit 4, 20%. Unit 5, 20%. Unit 6, 20%. Perla, I told Caroline not to come over because, yes, AK, all of them. I didn't figured you guys would start acting weird. I'm not falling asleep. I'm just being comfortable. Yes, I'm okay. I'm just tired. I haven't slept much over the last few days. But hey, we're close. Oh, this time tomorrow, life will be good. Drink some ice water. It's true, just as effective at waking you up as a cup of coffee. Ew, Joe, what does that mean? Ew, 5-hour energy is gross. Yes, you do, Jalen. You better get to school on time. What led to the collapse of the USSR? A lot of it is Gorbachev's policies of glasnost and perestroika, as he's trying to allow a little bit of capitalism in, as he's trying to not be as authoritarian and oppressive. As he backs off, he oh, Caroline, yeah, that song's really dirty. With glasnost and perestroika, he starts to open up the USSR to ideas from the West, and it just makes people more aware of how crappy their lives are, and so they want to get rid of communism and get rid of Soviet control. Oh my gosh, Mahir's on here. Wow. Why were Argentinians sympathetic, supportive to the Germans in World War II? Because Argentina had a ton of German immigrants already living there. What can you take into the testing room? Not much. Oh, thanks, Kirk. I'll miss you guys. The Circle of Justice? I don't know. Sounds like a bad Marvel comic book. Jim Shark stuff? I don't know what that means. Probably put your bags in the bleachers. OPEC, maybe. I don't know. Just means oil producing and exporting countries. Yes, you definitely need to know the Cold War. And bring your IDs. Bye. It's the 21st century. What do you expect from our generation songs? More Taylor Swift. That's what I expect. What are you talking about, Perla? It's true. No problem. What if you lost the card for AP? I have no clue. The golden age of Pericles? Probably not. Okay, cool. Good idea. Jewish diaspora. Jewish diaspora. Remember, they revolt against Roman rule. The Romans destroy their temple. They revolt against Roman rule. The Romans kick them out of Jerusalem, and so you see Jews spread out all throughout North Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. They settle in these little isolated communities wherever they go, trying to preserve their culture, their traditions, their religion, their law. But obviously, because they stay so different and oftentimes don't really assimilate to the local cultures, a lot of times they become targets. And so, obviously, leading up to the Holocaust. All right, Thomas. Have a good night. Kayleen, did you ask a question? I didn't. I don't know German. Nick Adams, really? You're the worst class officer ever. Were the Byzantines west or east what? Eastern Orthodox, eastern edge of the Mediterranean. There are examples of martyrs from other religions besides Christianity. Yeah, totally. I have a whole book just on martyrs in Islam. I mean, you're a martyr if you die because of your religious beliefs, but Christian attitudes toward martyrs is unlike any other religion. Uh, I don't know if I don't know about phones. Alea, that's just mean. What's the book called? What book? Didn't I already answer this? The Yellow and the Yangtze for the Grand Canal. Grand Canal. White and black stripe behind you. I don't know, the top of the couch. Oh, I'd have to grab it off my bookshelf. I think it's called Tales of God's Friends, a story of martyrs in Islam. Biggest examples of globalization. I mean, any example of something starting in one country and spreading around. I mean, think about McDonald's. Night. I hate you so much. Purpose of the EU is to make it easier for businesses to work together in Europe, for people to move and to work across borders, have a common currency, resolve conflicts. It's a purpose of the EU, the European Union. I'm not giving you a tour of my house. My book collection is in my bedroom, which I'm not going to show you. How did the Cold War end? The Soviet Union collapses. Alea, I don't like you keep continuously insinuating that. Oh, sorry. All right. Yes, you have to know about major migrations. I've been saying that all year. The Bantu, the Polynesian, Jewish diaspora, African diaspora. Sohan, I think you'll be fine. All right, yes, all right, chill it out. I'm gonna post the rubrics for the essays. So I'm not gonna see, if you have actual questions, I'm not gonna see them for a minute. So just be patient. Oh my God, no, Jack, you can't wear a hoodie. Most of the rubrics are virtually identical, just FYI. Okay. What did I miss? Dear Lord. All right, Madeline, Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini. Hitler, they're all authoritarian rulers.
Hitler and Mussolini are fascists, while Stalin is an authoritarian communist ruler. Um, no, Jack, you can't wear a hoodie. Um, yes, Christy, the mandate of heaven. It's so I've always read that the Shang kind of started to develop the idea, but the Zhou are the one where it's like really becomes a true theory. So you can go with the Zhou. Uh, how did silk production spread to other countries outside of China? I mean, eventually the Chinese can't keep that secret. And supposedly there's a story about monks hollowing out a walking stick and hiding silkworms in it. There's another story of a Chinese princess who gets married to Central Asian nomads, and she hides silkworms in her head scarf because she doesn't want to live without silk. Um, Now LA is just being mean. Are the American Revolution and the French Revolution similar? I don't even want to. I'm going to put my head through the wall. They're both using ideas from the Enlightenment in order to guarantee natural rights. Uh, yes, thank you, Drew. You're welcome, Kirk. Um, Jalen, if you bring a fidget spinner, I'm going to break it. Look on my website. I posted an AP exam reminder document. No, Jose, spend the rest of the night sleeping. Get some sleep. Eat a good breakfast. Buddhism doesn't go back to Hinduism in India. It's just Buddhism, even though it develops in India, it isn't able to gain popularity because Hinduism is so firmly entrenched in people. Leanne, how do you answer a short answer question if you just don't know anything about the topic? Guess. Think if maybe there was a multiple choice question that gave you a tip. Mandate of Heaven, yeah, basically lasts through the Qing dynasty. Who's Doves 1999? Weiner. All right. Good night, Josh. You're all contagious. You'll notice both of, or all of the LEQs are virtually identical. They're just working on different skills, which we've worked on all year. Parabesh, I'm so close to kicking you off. You're being so weird. And you spelled torture chamber wrong. Thanks, Joe. So are you. Nick Adams, I'm going to beat you up. Thank you, Jose. Good night. Night of cool. Good night, Michael. Kieran, get out of here. No, I haven't sold my Jeep yet. You're welcome, whoever you are, Papa Smurf. What period can we talk about the Ottoman Empire and short answers during 14 years? Yeah, you can. I mean, Ottoman Empire stretches technically over throughout 3 different periods. So, yeah. Genesis, go to bed. G8 and G6, probably. I don't think so. Kayleen, you don't need luck tomorrow. Mariam, I'm sorry, I didn't think about it until last year. All right, good night, Jalen. See you bright and early tomorrow. Serena, what? You've been here the whole time? Yep, that's how multiple choice works, Noah. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down. Oh, Maggie! Maggie, I'm expecting an invitation to a crawfish boil. Still putting that out there. Night. Good one, Juarez. Stop, Maggie. Oh, gumbo sounds so good. What are the top 5 things we have to remember? Oh my god, I don't even know. Top 5 things to remember. White people ruin everything. If something was invented, the Chinese and the Indians probably did it first. Don't invade Russia. The answer to everything in one word. Greed. I don't know. Delian League is the alliance of city-states headquartered by Athens. Oh, Saiba, welcome to the program. Oh my god, Millie. Ew, who's Tyler? Mariel, I think you can answer that question by looking at the question you asked. What kind of people were involved in the Polynesian migrations? Polynesians? Oh my God. It's true, Mariam. I noticed you just added a picture to your icon. And yes, what are you doing here? Oh, hi, Zane. Didn't even know you were here. Are you kidding, Drew? She's in your class. Yikes. The Hanseatic League is an organization of cities in Northern Europe. It was a protective trade alliance during the Middle Ages. Millie, see, you gotta get out more. Can't just hide in the back of the class and be quiet all the time. Shoot, two more. Oh, we got the other Chen. Hi, Matthew. Yes, Lufthansa does partially take their name from the Hanseatic League. Don't forget to duck and cover, yeah. Hey, one of the roomies is home. Yeah, they're out here.
You can't see that, can I?
No.
They can hear you, like you can't hear them.
Yeah, they're just chatting with me. The Great Game, Matthew. That's like, it's kind of like an early version of the Cold War, where the Russians are expanding into Central Asia. The British are expanding in India in the late 18 early 1900s, and so it's kind of like a game of espionage. It's kind of like the Cold War, competing for control of that area of the world. Coolest thing in history that we didn't learn about. Weird stuff that Christian monks did in the Middle Ages, or oh man, there's so much stuff in the 20th century that I could have talked about. What?
Right? One of them did.
Martin Luther eat his own poop? Are you kidding?
One of them did. One of the old monks.
Oh, gross. I hope not.
You know what? Good old Google.
I know. No problem, Matthew.
Orally ate one scoopful of his own feces every day.
What? He also hated Jews, so I guess,
I mean, Google gave me like 16 tons of hits.
Jeez. Yeah, just make sure you brush your teeth afterwards. It's all about Sigmund Freud, Erik Erikson. Who the hell is Tyler? Sarah, all it is you have to pull in outside information to help you explain your ideas. It's just as you're explaining the context of a document, you're talking about I'm trying to think. Kick him, Miranda. Kick who? Tyler. Charles Martel. He's not really that important. He's comes before Charlemagne. He defeats Muslims at the Battle of Tours. It stops Muslim expansion from Spain into France. I'm not. Okay. Anybody else have any actual questions? Sarah, I'm trying to think of a good example to give you. Think about that scramble for Africa DBQ. If you're talking, you're talking about like why these Europeans who are expanding into Africa during the late 18 and 1900s, why are they doing that? You can tie in information about them needing resources because of industrialization. You can say that part of the reason why they're treating the Africans so poorly is because of the theories of social Darwinism that had become so popular. You can expand and make connections with other examples of African of imperialism in Africa. Maybe the British with the Zulu, and so that's showing that you have an understanding of the whole entire concept, and not just that you're not just relying on your reading comprehension skills. No problem. What's wrong, Sheila? That'd be amazing, Sarah. Happy Wars? All right. Night, Joe. Christy, maybe I'll start working on it next week since we'll be done. Thanks, Devs, 1999. Seriously, I have no clue who we are. Good job, Tyler, whoever you are. Good night. Daisy. Come here. Come here. All right, go back. Yeah. Come here. Come here. Come on. You dummy. Come on. Night. Come here. Over here. Don't go under the table. Here. There you go. Here. Yeah, there you are. Hi. Hi, look. Hey, look. Look. Look, you have friends. Look. Ooh. Ooh. Night. Oh, Daisy's tired. Daisy is pretty smart. She knows a lot of tricks. What do you see? Oh my gosh. It's Hunter. Sick him. Oh my god.
Good.
Pretty.
Good girl. Good girl.
You dunk on anybody?
I was the second best one out there, and that's how bad we were.
That's the second
That's
best.
how bad we were.
No biggie.
Yeah, because they know this isn't good, guys. If you think I'm this good, that means we're all really this bad.
Oh god, can I go play with you guys?
Yeah.
Maybe I'd be like the fifth best.
For this, I took it out after the first game on the bed. Jogging, smiling.
Yes. All right. If anybody has any actual questions before I shut it down, now's your chance.
What's your girlfriend's name, Mr. Samuel?
Leia, I hate you so much. Stop.
Samuel, do you have any tricks you can do for us?
Night Wars. Have you been drinking?
Yeah, about to.
Save me a glass.
That's cheap for us beer.
Oh, what do you have?
Whatever I got at the gas station. Of course. I need to find back. Like drug acted.
Oh wait, hold on. I unmuted it. Is that Chrissy's favorite roommate? No, a different one. Let's see here. What year's the Civil War span? What Civil War? What are you talking about? Boys,
I almost got the highlight. Almost.
Socialism and communism, just kind of thinking of them interchangeably. It's not worth it to nitpick. How did Zheng He convince countries to give China tribute? Basically, he sails in and they see this huge fleet of ships loaded with treasure, and everybody's kind of overawed with how strong this country is that just sailed into their harbor. And so Zheng He is basically able to show them that we're incredibly powerful, we're incredibly rich, and so if you give us tribute, then we're going to be willing to trade with you, and it's only going to benefit you. Plus, Zheng He is wiping out all of the piracy in the Indian Ocean, so there's a lot of incentives for people to be willing to pay tribute to China in return for being able to trade with them and get their protection from pirates.
Yeah, they kicked the off.
Oh, I kicked off like a dozen people.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just being fools.
Yeah, being stupid, saying inappropriate things. One kid kept like asking me about how much I make. I'm like, bye. And there always end up on here kids who like don't even go to my school.
Really?
Yeah, I'm like, what? How is this happening?
Thanks for that. Kid nights.
I know, like you weird. And I get kids who like I taught last year who get on here.
Really?
I'm like, you have nothing better to do. Yes, Prince Henry the Navigator helped at the Age of Exploration. Night Alea, thank you for your questions. Okay. Yep. And Tyler, good night. Just blocked somebody else. Alea, you are now my new least favorite student. Peloponnesian Wars, they could be. Just the wars fought between Athens and Sparta. Oh, Amrita, you're not using John V's anymore? What were some wars that Ottomans were part of 1500 to 1720? What a random time frame. The Battle of Lepanto that sees the like a Spanish Venetian fleet defeat them and basically stops Ottoman expansion into the Western Mediterranean. I will be locking my doors tonight. Good night, Nick. Yeah. We all do have our ghosts, don't we? Night. Everything's gonna be fine. If you guys have been paying attention all year and doing everything, you're gonna do well. So get some sleep. If I have any nightmares tonight, I'm blaming y'all. Catherine marries into the Romanov dynasty and then may or may not have her close advisors murder her husband so that she can become czar. Well, I know other people have been paying attention all year. Genesis. Thank you, Alea. Night. Yes, last class, Genesis, I was looking at you and you had your eyes closed. And then every time you opened them, if you didn't notice, I was looking right at you. Claire, you're going to be fine. Safavid Empire, one of our Muslim gunpowder. Why have like 18 people asked me about the Safavids? Muslim gunpowder empire, Shia. Christy Cheng. Gunpowder empires are empires that formed during the early modern era, so usually in the 1400s. They are Muslim-dominated governments that use firearms to take control. The Ottomans and the Ottomans and Safavids are Muslim-majority countries. The Mughals are a Muslim minority ruling over a Hindu majority. They trade extensively, not only with each other, but also with Europeans. They usually have a high output of art and architecture. How did printing get from China to Germany? Hard to prove. Hard to prove. This is a common argument whether or not Chinese printing had an impact on the development of the printing press. Really hard to say. Were the Americans the first to revolt against their mother country? Pretty much, yeah. Were the Ottomans part of any expansions after the Tanzimat reforms? No. It doesn't, in the end, it doesn't really do much to stop the decline. How did World War II end? You have the Soviet Union on one side and the British and Americans on the other. They invade Europe and conquer Germany. I mean, they have to go all the way into Berlin to conquer it. For Japan, the United States and China and the British pushed Japan basically back to Japan. We think we're going to have to invade Japan, and then we decide to instead drop 2 atomic bombs on Japan, and that forces them to surrender. You're going to question about firearms and the gunpowder empires for synthesis. Would the African empires and Tokugawa show going to be good examples? Yeah, those would be great examples because it's in the same time period, but it's in a different part of the world. You're welcome, Noah. Have a good night. Get some sleep. You're welcome, Claire. Hope it helped. Get some sleep. You'll do fine tomorrow. Night, y'all. You're welcome. Hope it helped. Get some sleep. All right, I'm going to shut it down. You guys are going to be fine. I'm confident in you. Yeah. Make sure you're there tomorrow morning, 7:30. Bring your ID. Bring a pen and a pencil. Something to keep you warm, but no pockets, no hoods. You'll be great. All right. Have a good night, y'all. Night.